Okay. So thank you for your invitation. I will try to present you a new technology that try to introduce the concept of nano-brain print, the biopsy of neurodegenerative brain, and maybe with perspective of nano-prevention for neurodegenerative disease. Neurodegenerative disease, it's a huge challenge. It's a huge burden because of aging, Alzheimer, Parkinson's disease. It's one of the first medico-economic costs, handicap, death, and it's a huge failure for all the research. It's a disaster. You know, the last disaster is the publication of the failure of all the targeted therapy trial, targeted beta amyloid. So an economical disaster and a medical disaster. So we have nothing to treat this patient. Why? For something very simple. We do not have access to the fresh brain tissue. You know, the revolution of cancer precision medicine, cancer targeted therapy, was made possible because you can access to the tumor, to the fresh tumor, by surgery or by microinvasive technology. For the brain, you only have post-mortem brain. So you have many, many non-specific molecular abnormalities. So it's not possible to decipher the molecular biology, so to find target for this disease. There is one specific situation that was developed in Grenoble 25 years ago by Aline Louis-Benabid and Pierre Pollack. That is neurostimulation. You know, in patients with tremor, Parkinson's disease, or dystonia, when there is no therapy available for this patient, Aline Benabid, supported by many, many researchers all over the world, demonstrated that deep brain stimulation, high-frequency deep brain stimulation, can induce a huge symptomatic effect. You can see here in dystonia, you introduce an electrode in the subthalamic nucleus, and you have a huge therapeutical impact, and you can see this patient that can move normally again. Now, there is 25 years later, many developments, and especially more than Parkinson, in Alzheimer, in Toronto, in psychiatric disorder. So this is really a paradigmatic situation to access everywhere in the brain without any lesion. So it's functional neurosurgery. It's microinvasive, but you do not induce a lesion. And in this concept, we investigate, like criminal medicine, if on the target that is in contact with the brain, we have some molecular and cellular information. And we demonstrate, also in collaboration with Pierre Burkhardt in Geneva, where we translate the technology, that we can recover some brain microfragment, fresh brain, live brain, and we demonstrate that we can do immunohistochemistry, next genomic sequencing, and proteomics. And we open this to an international brain print consortium and biobank. But this technology is a huge opportunity because it's the first time you have access to fresh human brain tissue for molecular deciphering. But my dream would be to have a spatial fingerprint with high resolution, catching the resolution of the neuronal network without any lesion and compatible with polyomic investigation. So we previously developed something in glioblastoma, and the idea is to develop a next-generation device using nanoporous silicon. Why nanoporous? It comes from discussion with Mauro Ferrari and Ennio Tasciotti in Houston. They were using nanoporous silicon for biomarker harvesting in pathological fluids. And also, because we visit, it is really serendipity, we visit the clean room of the Leti, and we found a machine, a wafer-producing machine for nanoporous that was stopped because it was used 20 years ago for electronics. So we asked to the nanotechnologist a big nanoporous, a 20 nanometer nanoporous, mimicking what was done in Houston, but in a wafer-producing context. And also, we ask, and it was not existing, a very small nanoporous silicon for metabolomic bioharvesting. So we start with electrochemically etched mesoporous silicon done directly on a wafer, and after they develop a small nanoporous production technology. So we move from DBS to a brand-print concept. So we anticipate very early the industrial chain of fabrication to have reproducibility, to have robustness, and to have all the prerequisites for biomedical regulation. We demonstrate high interbatch reproducibility. It is a huge problem with classical nanoporous technology. We had to develop grinding technology because it was too big to be compatible with a neurosurgery device. We demonstrate the in vivo biocompatibility. And we integrate this silicon-based device inside a specific device. And the objective was to be plug and play with immediate clinical translation. So the idea is to use the stylet that we use for neurostimulation to insert the nanoporous silicon chip and to add an exposure window. So we go down in the brain, hiding the surface. We expose the surface. So we have a spatial bioharvesting. We hide the surface, and we go outside the brain. We did the validation in non-human primates, so we can see this bioharvesting immunohistochemistry. You have strong GFAP and BT3 tubulin immunostaining, demonstrating that we catch astrocytes and neurons. It was very important to demonstrate the high resolution of the bioharvesting. To do that, we did MALDI imaging directly on the nanoporous chip, and we tried to correlate with the postoperative MRI in the non-human primate and with the stereotaxic atlas. And we demonstrate a perfect correlation with the bioharvesting material and the neuroanatomy of the non-human primate. After that, we anticipate the translation to a phase 0 proof of concept trial. So we did classical biocompatibility. We demonstrate again in non-human primates that we observe similar modifications than observed with classical metal device, GFAP, slight macrophage reaction, so just the local glial scare. And we had, in an European ERANET, ethical work package. And the question was, can we move now directly? Because the norm accepts the trial. And our analysis was that it's not possible. It's not possible because it's a nano structure that was not before introduced in the human brain. You know, when you have a Parkinson's disease, the risk-benefit ratio is not very good if we have side effects. So we decide to do more than the norm, and we demonstrate locally with all the polyametric tools that we have, but that are not in the norm. And especially you can see here MySPECT imaging. So we did MySPECT imaging, and we demonstrate that it is similar profile signature compared to metal. We did transcriptomic analysis, we did proteomic sequencing, and we clearly demonstrate that this nanoporous surface does not induce any significant modification using all the polyomic tools that are available. Just to show you the interest of the small nanoporous, this was developed for audio protection study. You know, in hearing disorder, you can implant a cochlear implant, and the idea, and nobody knows the mechanism and the target for neuroprotection. So the idea was to be able to do a cochlear print. So it is really very, very small. And a pharmaceutical company had a small molecule inhibitor targeting metabolome. So we use a small nanoporous, 1 nanometer. We demonstrate, you see on the classical proteomic analysis, the direct mass spec, high-resolution mass spec analysis on the small nanoporous. We enhance the detection of the metabolome, and we are now developing a cochlear print device that could be a companion device for neuroprotection therapy. So just to show you the technology perspective, it is not lesional, but it is microinvasive. So if I ask you, can I do a small horn in your brain with stereotaxic functional surgery? Probably that most of you will say no. And it's very important to detect very early when you are healthy. So it was important to integrate non-invasive technology. So the idea was to inject superparamagnetic nanoparticles, to attract them in the tissue, and to develop nano-bioharvesting. So we use superparamagnetic nanoparticles with specific chemical coating. Everything is done, especially in the oncology field, especially to attract. But what was not possible is to recover the very small 20 nanometer nanoparticles. So we collaborate with Louinel Institute, and they develop a specific design for a micromagnet in ruthenium that can induce locally 1.5 Tesla, and we demonstrate in a swim model that we can attract the superparamagnetic nanoparticles, and we can explore specific signature. Now we have to develop the brain signature and specific technology for activation in the brain to have a specific nanobiopsy. We have some development for that. So in conclusion, we develop a new biomedical procedure, the nano brain print technology, that is a non-lesional molecular and cellular device to decipher neurodegenerative disease. It could be a huge opportunity to find the target for personalized therapy in neurodegenerative disease. So now we did the proof of concept demonstration. We have a technology that is developed anticipating the clinical trial. So everything is ready. We demonstrate the biocompatibility. We follow the norm. We did more than the norm. So now, again, ethical issue, can we move in the clinical trial? We said no, and we decide, for the reason I discussed before, because of the risk-benefit ratio and of the unknown of nanotechnology in the human brain, to start with glioblastoma. So next year, we should start the trial with 5 patients with glioblastoma. And in glioblastoma, it's very important to explore the peritumoral area that will be a model for the normal brain. And we have already a technology with silicon in glioblastoma. And we will move after in Parkinson's disease. There is one very important perspective. You know, in all this meeting and in all the research labs everywhere, in oncology or in neurodegenerative disease, mainly we work trying to fight the disease, glioblastoma, Parkinson's disease. And if we are honest, maybe it is a huge epistemological mistake, because, especially in Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease, when I have a small tumor, most of the dopaminergic neurons are destroyed. So probably we should push preventive approach, early detection, and also something very important, very, very important. Besides the global warning, very important medical knowledge is emerging that we are losing our minds. And environmental nanochemical pollution impair human intelligence and mental health. This was clearly demonstrated by several groups and aggregated by Barbara Demenex in Paris. And more recently, it was demonstrated that there is a magnetic nanopollution in the human brain. It was demonstrated by the group of Mahler from brain in Mexico and in Cambridge. And they clearly demonstrated that the brain, coming from the olfactory bulbs, but also vascular system, is contaminated by ferromagnetic nanoparticles. And New England Journal of Medicine publication, epidemiological publication, clearly demonstrate a huge increase of Alzheimer's disease if you live close to an highway, for example. So our analysis is that very important to use our technology to find targets to fight Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease, but also very important to use this to characterize this. It is really unknown. So we are opening a program to characterize this nanochemical pollution in the human brain during deep brain stimulation, and also a specific program to use the magnet I show you, its power for remediation of superparametric nanoparticle is very high. So the idea, beside what we have to do, but that will be very difficult, that is to modify our environmental behavior, would be to implement some kind of brain remediation strategy using this kind of technology. So thank you very much. This was possible by all the researchers of the lab, by the discussion with the group of Mauro Ferrari in Caltech, the Louis Néel Institute, CLAT that did the technology, and also we initiate Brainomic trial research program with Mira Marcus and Sven Hore Hansen in Sweden for the ethical analysis, and the goal is to translate in a clinical trial the technology I show you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. You have a question there.
Thank you. There is another way to do non-invasive brain studies is by developing stem cells from the belly and then evolve them via techniques into neurons and study that. How do you think about that?
The stem, I think this is a very important strategy, stem cell, but also regenerative medicine. The problem with stem cells is that in Parkinson's disease, and Huntington disease, many clinical trials try to use, for example, embryonic stem cell, but one of the problems was when you inject the stem cells in the Parkinson brain, the stem cells are contaminated by the disease, and they became stem cells with Parkinson's disease. So now, probably also perspective in gene therapy. So, for example, Stefan Palfy and other guy try to do gene therapy for Parkinson's disease, and regenerative medicine, trying with nanomaterial to stimulate the endogenous stem cell. So for sure, the stem cell is important. My vision would be that the future is probably regenerative stem cell inducing the endogenous stem cell, probably. But
thank you.
But I think also this environmental issue is very, very important.
Any more questions?
Oh yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. My question relates to the fact that you're trying to do a non-invasive screening, so to say, for neurodegenerative diseases, which means you're going to have to cross the blood-brain barrier. How do you plan on addressing that?
The last part, it was just a perspective demonstration. So in fact, I hide all the technology we are developing. So in fact, we are mixing, by now, to have a specific brain location, we are mixing with ultrasound blood-brain opening, highly focusing ultrasound blood-brain opening in collaboration with a group of Michael Tanter in ESCPI. But it's not ready now. The idea is to, we have superparametric particles with specific chemistry that catch subproteome or genomic, and now the idea is to have like the window, we have the micro device, a chemistry that is destroyed by the ultrasound, and you activate the blood-brain barrier opening, and at the same time, you activate the particle for the nano bioharvesting. But it's ongoing.
So thank you for your presentation. And just to add to the previous question, so how will you plan? I mean, you will inject the nanoparticles locally, because 20 nanometer particles in the bloodstream, they will go anywhere. Or how will you control them?
In fact, the first where we are now is if you inject nano, for biomarker. So the first part is to have a remote biomarker for neurodegenerative disease. But they are at so low concentration. So the first idea was, if I have the whole blood circulation plus the nano bioharvesting properties, all the work demonstrated ex vivo by Lyotard, Mauro Ferrari, and many researchers, I will have the opportunity to catch very, very, very low concentrated biomarker. And we clearly demonstrate that in the big animal models, that we are able to detect trace protein using the whole blood nano bioharvesting. So this is the first step. The second one is to focus in the brain. So this is more, so you have to inject superparametric nanoparticles that have a protective coating and to activate in the brain. So now, really, we focus on ultrasound.
Well, I think that I've got a few more questions, but I think we... Okay. Whilst it's going on, could I just ask about the ethics of the, Francois, of the glioblastoma? Because the patient's got no benefit, presumably, from that insertion.
In glioblastoma, the ethical analysis was the risk-benefit ratio. So when you have a glioblastoma, life expectancy is less than 1 year. But also the benefit, in glioblastoma, there is a huge problem with tumor heterogeneity and peritumoral investigation. So the benefit is to use this technology to map the tumor heterogeneity, because it's not possible to do more than 2 biopsies, but also to explore the peritumor area where there is a relapse. So I did not present the result, but we have now a clinical trial with silicon chip, with chemistry and microstructuration. We validate the safety. We validate in the peritumor brain. And we have a prospective multi-center trial to give to the patient targeted therapy, integrating the analysis of tumor heterogeneity and peritumor target.
Thank you. Okay.